Hi guys, Forgotten Wolf here, and this is episode 2 of the Game of Thrones House of series. This episode is on the history of the Greyjoys, but before we begin, if you want to see more about the Greyjoys, at 35k views, I'll make a video on Greyjoy's Rebellion. At 500 likes, and at 100 subs, I'll make a 1 hour video on the FNAF Timeline. Spoilers ahead, let's begin! Before we talk about the Greyjoys, we need to talk about Harrenhal. That's actually his last name. I'm not just saying that. Who ruled the Riverlands and the Iron Islands. This was the case until Aegon's conquest, where Harren refused to bend the knee and was killed by dragons while he was in Harrenhal. The Riverlands were given to the Tullys, but the Iron Islands didn't bend the knee, which resulted in King Aegon Targaryen I invading them and killing all of House Hor. That sounds so wrong. After the death of House Hor, the Iron Islands bent the knee, and the Greyjoys became Lord of the Iron Islands in 2 AC. The first ruler of the Iron Islands was Lord Vicon Greyjoy. Vicon's first major act as Lord was to allow the Faith to return to the Iron Islands. This created further conflict in the Iron Islands, where after Vicon's death, his son Lord Goran Greyjoy rebelled against the priest king of the Iron Islands, who had taken in Loras the twice-drowned's revolt. Lord Goran won, and as a result, King Aenys Targaryen allowed the Iron Islands to have its own religion again. There was peace in the Iron Islands, but the Greyjoys are ruling for a long time like the rest of Westeros, but this stopped with the Dance of the Dragons. Now, spoilers ahead for House of the Dragon. The Greyjoys sided with Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen and agreed to raid the Westerlands ruled by the Lannisters, who supported Aegon Targaryen. Aegon won the Dance of the Dragons, and he sent Lord Aenor Velaryon to deal with the Greyjoys. The current Lord Dalton Greyjoy was eventually caught and murdered, which resulted in a two-way conflict or political conflict for the new Lord of the Iron Islands, which Lord Torrhen Greyjoy won. After Torrhen Greyjoy, it was Alton Greyjoy, who sought to conquer Westeros and return the Ironborn to the old way. And this started with his son, Lord Dagon Greyjoy, invading the mainland. King Aerys Targaryen, not the Mad King, did not take too kindly to this, so the Targaryens gathered the Starks and Lannisters. Wow, Starks and Lannisters cooperating for once, so it's a fucking miracle. And together the houses defeated the Greyjoys again. A while passed, and then Lord Quellon Greyjoy came to power, and he ruled for a little bit before Robert's rebellion broke out. Lord Quellon initially wanted to stay out of the war like the Lannisters, but eventually, after the Battle of the Trident, he joined the rebels and raided the Reach, who supported the Targaryens. During one of these battles, Lord Quellon was killed, and Balon Greyjoy pulled the Iron Islands out of Robert's rebellion in order to claim the Iron Islands for himself. So basically how it works is that, unlike traditional lords and successions, the Ironborn have a democratic system where you can crown the new Lord of the Iron Islands. So Balon Greyjoy, instead of continuing his father's fight in the Reach, immediately went to claim power in the Iron Islands. Lord Balon temporarily bent the knee to King Robert Baratheon. However, he thought that Robert's reign wasn't so easy and as secure as people may think it was. So he declared independence from the crown 7 years later, starting Greyjoy's rebellion. Greyjoy's rebellion was quickly over thanks to Ned Stark, Stannis Baratheon, Robert Baratheon, and others. Lord Balon was allowed to be Lord again despite Robert's brother Stannis wanting to kill all the Greyjoys, which, as a Stark fan, I want to go back in time and make Robert act on Stannis' decision. The Greyjoys wouldn't go without punishment, however, as Lord Balon's last son, Theon Greyjoy, was sent to Winterfell to serve as the Starks' ward as punishment. Lord Balon was allowed to keep his daughter Yara Greyjoy with him, though. After Robert's rebellion, the Greyjoys spent a lot of time building up the Iron Fleet and recovering from the Greyjoy's rebellion, but they did make one move, being exiling Euron Greyjoy. The Greyjoys were pretty much absent through Season 1 of Game of Thrones and a majority of the politics. But the War of the Five Kings started, and the Greyjoys got a major hostage back. Theon Greyjoy had been ward of the Starks for 10 years now, and had grown and quite fond of Robb Stark, but in Season 2, Robb made the horrible mistake of letting Theon go back to the Iron Islands in an attempt to secure an alliance with Balon Greyjoy and the Iron Islands. Robb had intended the Greyjoys to take Casterly Rock, forcing Tywin to move on his homeland instead of going to King's Landing. Balon decided against that, and he wanted to be king again, so he once again declared independence from the Seven Kingdoms. When Theon finally returned, Balon was now king again, and he had been talking about possibly making Yara Greyjoy his heir instead of Theon. Theon needed to win glory for himself, and he was hated by the people of the Iron Islands for no reason. I hate him, but there's a reason why. I'll get into that later. Balon Greyjoy, instead of taking Casterly Rock, wanted to raid the north while not taking Winterfell since he didn't think that they had the men for the siege. And it kind of makes sense for going for the north, as all the Stark's men were in the south, so the logic there makes sense. Theon had been instructed to secure a bridge, but instead he decided to win some glory for himself. First, he laid siege to Tarn Square, and this drawed the Winterfell army under the command of Sir Rodrik Cassel. This worked to Theon's plan, and in the night, Theon Greyjoy snuck out of the siege of Tarn Square and into Winterfell, and the Greyjoys had taken away the Starks' home. Theon Greyjoy became Theon Turncloak, or Theon the Traitor, or whatever you want to call him. Balon Greyjoy now styled himself King of the Iron Islands and the North. And after the fall of Winterfell, Theon would try to ensure his reign of Winterfell despite of the wishes of his sister Yara. Theon Greyjoy killed Sir Rodrik Cassel and tried to ensure that Prince Bran Stark and Rickon Stark would stay with him. Yara had wanted to transport Bran and Rickon to the Iron Islands to keep them captive, which would have possibly been interesting to see, but that did not happen. But one night, a wildling Osha seduced one of Theon's Ironborn and killed him, allowing for Jojen Reed, Mira Reed, Osha, Summer, Shaggy Dog, a giant named Hodor, and very crucially, Bran and Rickon Stark to escape Winterfell. Bran had lost the use of his legs and needed Hodor, so at this point, it was very crucial for Hodor to be with Bran. And this made it even more shocking, the Bran not having legs, that this even happened. I'm questioning what the guards were doing, the other guards, not the one that died. Meanwhile, in Winterfell, Ramsay Snow, Lord of the Dreadfort, while his father, Roose Bolton, was with Robb in the south, posed as Reek, who wanted to support Theon and let his hounds to Theon so Theon could try and catch them. So what Wildling Osha did is sent the direwolves on a different trail and then go back into Winterfell. When the direwolves stayed with them as well, they found their way back in. Theon ordered Ramsay to continue the search while Theon went back to Winterfell. Instead of that, Ramsay went back to the Dreadfort. You'll see why later. Theon couldn't let word of the escape of Bran and Rickon get out, so he found 2 farm boys and skinned them and burned them alive. So people thought they were Bran and Rickon Stark, and he published this to the whole of Westeros. Following this, Yara Greyjoy went to Winterfell, called Theon a fucking idiot, which he is, and encouraged him to leave Winterfell and return home, since word of the advancing Bolton army under the command of Ramsay Snow on Winterfell had reached the Greyjoys by this point. Maester Luwin, meanwhile, he wanted to get Theon to take the Black and join the Night's Watch because Theon didn't want to go home because they thought he'd be called a coward and they'd hate him even more. Theon didn't take the Night's Watch for a simple reason. He thought that Jon Snow, Ned Stark bastard, who in reality was Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark's son, would kill him, since Theon had made known he killed Bran and Rickon when in reality he didn't. And could he maybe have if season 7 is any indication, then yes, Jon probably would have killed Theon if he got there. But Theon wouldn't end up taking the Black, as he was taken captive as his Ironborn betrayed him, and Theon was shipped off to the Dreadfort to become captive of the Boltons, where he was tortured and eventually became Reek, no longer Theon Greyjoy, and became depressed, and he felt bad for what he did to the Starks. Meanwhile, Balon Greyjoy learned of this, and he began seeing his influence in the north reduced, with Yara called back home, and the Boltons became the new Lord of Winterfell and warden of the North with the death of Robb Stark. Go check out my War of the Five Kings video if you want more of that. Greyjoys enjoyed independence as the constant fire in King's Landing prevented any serious attempt to retake the Iron Islands. Although, based on the books, we know they would have gone after Storm's End first. The year was now 303 AC, and the long exiled Euron Greyjoy came home, reunited with his brother King Balon Greyjoy. This reunion was not a happy one, as Euron killed Balon. Yet, this meant a new king had to be crowned. But before that, Theon Greyjoy had escaped the Boltons and freed Sansa Stark from the Boltons. After leaving Winterfell, he was able to give her to Brienne of Tarth and Podrick Payne to take the wild location of Jon Snow. Theon didn't go with, and instead went back home to the Iron Islands. Theon was not the same man that had left the Iron Islands, and despite some people wanting Theon to become king, he advocated for Yara Greyjoy to become queen of the Iron Islands. Instead, Euron rallied the people around him, promising to marry a queen, and he would kill Theon and Yara. Euron was crowned king of the Iron Islands, and Yara and Theon managed to escape east to meet with Daenerys Targaryen and a small portion of the Iron Fleet, while Euron Greyjoy began moving south to meet Queen Cersei Lannister. That is all from the history of House Greyjoy for now. But please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, bye!